Doug Groote is a certified financial planner, CFP, with an MBA in financial planning and an active member of the Financial Planning Association. He established the Groote Financial Group, but before that he founded United Wealth Management's division of United Capital. Prior to that, he was a partner at Kroll Weeden Company. He regularly contributes to a variety of financial and general media. He's also active politically and has dedicated his time, talents, and treasure to keeping America strong for future generations. He's on the board of directors for Charlie Kirk's TP, Turning Point USA. In addition, he's completed our NSIC advisor training at Liberty University. Welcome to the Economic War Room, Doug.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, Kevin. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
I've enjoyed the time that we've been able to spend as you visited Liberty Hawk Ranch and getting to know you at various functions. You know, what we're going to talk about, we're going to use a bad, good, beautiful approach.
Perfect.
I mean, you're from California, so you understand Clint Eastwood's had the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yep.
Clint was the mayor of Carmel, where I lived for a while.
Yeah.
But we like to end with the beautiful. We don't want to end on the ugly. So we
That's right.
start with the bad, we talk about the good, and then we go to the beautiful.
Perfect.
And your background's like mine. You're a wealth manager,
Yep.
and you've had the opportunity to work with a lot of very successful people as clients.
It's been an honor to be able to work with these people and earn their trust every day.
Yeah, well, you're doing great. I get your weekly newsletter.
Thank you.
What happened last week?
Yeah,
Isn't that what
absolutely.
it's called?
What happened last week, and what does it mean?
Yeah. So what's impacting you in the market, in politics, the economy, the world situation? Just tell me, what are your feelings today in the bad vein?
In the bad vein? Well, I think, we've lost our way over the last 20, 30 years. Growing up in California, it was truly the epicenter for entrepreneurialism. Back in the 70s and 80s, when Reagan was governor, all the way through the Reagan White House, more businesses were created in California than any other part of the country, year over year over year. And then there's a shift as we found our way through, I think, the education system, some of the things that were being taught led to less entrepreneurialism. And we've really fallen away from that ownership mentality. And that's what scares me about where we're at as a nation today. And we need to get back there. And I think that's the biggest issue that we face is really providing entrepreneurs and young people the opportunity to create their own businesses. And it really comes from, when you think about it, the hockey stick of our civilization as Western civilization was the United States. But what it was the First Amendment and Clause 8, which literally entitles you to ownership of your property, your intellectual property, your writings, and what have you. And that is the capital markets that have flourished because of that. And since that time period, we've created, more Nobel Peace Prize winners, more movies, more musicians, more everything, more inventions, more patents than any other country, all countries combined.
Yeah, well, you go to the Constitution. What I want to congratulate you for is making your children memorize either the Bible or the Constitution to get their first cell phone. I mean, that's very creative. Age 12, you can have a cell phone, but you have to memorize this first.
That's right. Yeah, if you want a cell phone, that's what they had to do. In fact, it's helped our kids out tremendously in their history classes and really understand, look, if you don't know your rights, how do you defend it?
Well, that's how Ted Cruz became.
That's right.
He started by memorizing the Constitution.
It was a funny story. I was in Colorado. We were helping Ted Cruz. We were invited to go to an event to decide if we wanted to help Ted Cruz with his deal. And I was sold on Ted from the moment he became a senator. His first year, I loved his ability to really filter out the noise and get to the point really quickly. He's an amazing man, and I really treasure what he's done and what he brings to our country. And we were sitting there, and my daughter had just memorized the Constitution, and Ted stands up on stage and says, my dad made me memorize the Constitution to get a bike. And so I text my daughter, I said, hey, Michelle, you just memorized, there's one other person that had memorized the Constitution to get a bike, and he's running for president.
Yeah, no, isn't that cool?
Yeah. So that was really kind of cool. It really opened her up, and now she's very involved at Liberty. She worked for CPI, and she's done some really neat things as a young lady at 19 years old.
That's awesome. Well, I'll tell you, I was talking with our mutual friend Chris Buzzkirk earlier, and he wrote this book about America and the art of the possible.
Yes.
And he contrasts how we used to be very innovative, which ties in with what you just said. That Constitution had a very unique clause in it. It said the Congress could establish patents and the first patent law signed by President Washington said he, she, or they could invent things. So it's a use of pronouns, not in the modern sense, but the use of pronouns.
Yep.
But it meant women could invent.
Yes.
More importantly, it meant individuals, male, female, or a group of individuals together. But it wasn't the great British science societies.
That's
it
right.
was individual entrepreneur innovators.
That's right.
And they made America great. And we've kind of gone away from that. California went away from that.
We've fallen away tremendously. I mean, we went from being the most productive in new business startups in the nation for years. Really, post-World War II, you saw all these companies, whether they're manufacturing cars, airplanes, I mean, there's tons of that. You got consolidation that happened, what have you. But the reality is we were the epicenter for growth for so long. I mean, you know, it's funny, you look at history, and it was move west, young man, right?
Right.
Well, the Pacific Ocean kind of stopped the westward movement, but really I think it's an acronym or a symbol for productivity and creativity and adventure and really starting your own business. And I think that we need to get back in line with that, and that's one of the big issues that I'm really, you know, I try to focus on with young people at Turning Point. I just love these young creative minds that are out there, they want an opportunity, and yet we're falling into this oligarchy of European structure, if I might say so, where we're taking that away and making it harder for capital to flow to new creation.
And in fact, the innovation that we're seeing in a lot of times is like social media, but it's the ability to block people, to silence speech, to stop. So all of the innovation dollars, which are being funded in large part by the government, our tax dollars and so forth.
Absolutely.
So we're taking liberty away from individuals and giving power to the government.
That's right. I mean, without free speech, you lose creativity of ideas, right? I mean, if you're afraid to do something, that's why Germany, you know, after Hitler, they didn't create anything. I mean, look at Russia. I mean, if socialism was so great and free speech was so bad, Russia would be the most creative country in the world.
And they're not.
They're not.
And not even China, which attempted to adopt capitalism, hasn't been innovative. They're stealing most of their intellectual
China
property.
is they utilize capitalism as they love the word, but they do not believe in the policy of what it means. And if they did, they wouldn't be, you know, creating, you know, these social constructs where they're keeping an eye on everybody and saying, oh, you're social capital, you got a box here checked, you're gone.
Yeah, well, we're going to need to take a break. When we come back, let's talk about your solution, the American-made promise. Our guest is Doug DeGroote, and I want to start with a quote of his. This is the quote. "You've heard me say it before, the freer the country, the more prosperous and secure the people. Our prosperity and security depend on us, the citizenry, holding our elected and unelected officials accountable. And then he says, check out AmericanMadePromise.com, sign it and pass it on. What is the American Made Promise?
It's the contract with America. It truly is the American people's contract. It didn't come from a politician. It didn't come from congressmen. It was 88 business owners that gathered in Washington, D.C. at the Bible Museum, where the Green family was gracious enough to host us. We had Newt Gingrich facilitate the conversation, which was incredible. Dave Bratt and I put this thing together, really just phoning and calling out business owners around the country that wanted to be a part of this. And what was amazing was these people showed up on their own dime, no money asked, no money paid for it. They all came in, we all flew into DC, put this together, and we sat around tables for a day and a half discussing what's important to us. And it all comes back to that ownership mentality, freedom, liberty, giving people the opportunity to be responsible for themselves. And that is really what this comes down to. Our Constitution allows us to be really in charge of our own destiny. And the American Made Promise is a contract where we're hoping to get all our congressmen to sign it as elected officials or people that are running for office. And during this time period, in 21, when we brought it out in November, we brought it out in February of 2022. I presented it to a bunch of the guys at the Freedom Caucus, congressmen, several senators, passed it around, gave it to anybody that wanted it. Since that time period, you had Andy Biggs came up with his contract, Scott out of Florida came up with his, actually his was the first one, and then we've got McCarthy that brought his out. So we built this website that has all the contracts, including the very first contract with America, and that's the Constitution. So you can go there, see all the contracts, look at everything there. And what's unique is ours actually provided action steps to be taken. Theirs were a lot of platitude and a lot of talk, which was great because they're talking about it. We got them in talking about it.
They all kind of fit hand in glove.
They all fit hand in glove. And why we built this website was, hey, we need accountability. And so for so long, we've kind of allowed Congress and the Senate and our elected officials to basically delegate their job and their responsibility as elected officials who are supposed to be running our country to unelected bureaucrats and agencies that are absolutely taking the laws passed in Congress, or I should say the bills passed in Congress, and creating their own laws to really grow government. And unfortunately, government has one thing to do, and that's to get bigger and bigger.
Yeah, no, that's a problem.
And that's the scary part.
So the investor version of that, and I know you've been to the training at Liberty University.
Yes.
The investor version that we do at the NSIC, National Security Investment Consultant, is liberty, security, and values.
That's it.
And again, that's a commitment we're asking people to make, is to invest their dollars to promote liberty, security, and values. That seems so perfectly directed with the American Made Promise.
That's when Kevin, when you first told me about NSIC and the organization, where you're going with this, you had me at hello. I was just blown away with it because, being in the financial planning industry since 1997 when I came back from Africa.
And you were a hunter in Africa.
I hunted professionally in Africa.
That's an amazing thing too. That's a whole other story.
Another story. We'll talk about that. But when for the last 20 plus years of doing this, to find an organization that understands the value of capitalism and what it really truly means, and can see through the noise of the ESGs, the DEI stuff, and all the alphabet mafia that's out there, we're getting to the point of what's really important to Americans, and that's their economic security, their well-being. And the things that we talk about in your organization and going through the class, I have to say is, every advisor should have it, regardless of your political affiliation. You have to understand how money's utilized, and if you don't understand that, you're going to be at a deficit, not only intellectually, but you're going to be at a deficit from a standpoint of being able to work with clients that truly want to understand, how do I best serve my country, my future, my goals and aspirations.
Well, I started in the financial business really in the 1980s, but before that in the 70s, my dad was a stockbroker, and so I was following it. You in the 1990s. When we started, Wall Street was kind of neutral, and the idea was growth and innovation and so forth, but it became politicized really in the last 20 years.
Yeah, I think you started seeing it right around the dot-com bubble. I don't know if you remember the dot-com bubble, much of what was going on there, but you started to see politics in play in California, mainly because of the Bay Area and all that. And these companies were backing, it was always Wall Street money was going to the conservatives, right? That's what they always said. It was the idea that Congress was getting all their money from those rich Wall Street guys and the corporations. And you really saw, I remember, late 90s, you saw a sea shift. And then it started becoming a language. It was really started to, they're utilizing a language to kind of create a bifurcation in our economy and our way of life. And really, unfortunately, I think what's happened is the education system was funded by a lot of this stuff. And that's led to, where you had these different boards and ESG stuff. The ESG stuff is really where it came from, but it was really more environmental. It was all the environmental language that they're going after.
But it's also massively political. I mean, we were talking earlier about how Elon Musk gamed the system a bit.
That's right.
He realized if he donated money to Barack Obama, he could take Tesla into the lead in electric cars, and they were not in the lead at the time. They weren't.
Yeah, Fisker was actually the one that had the car on the road first, and you had those guys, they got left behind because of whether it was political or they didn't donate the right people or whatever. Tesla was the winner in that.
They politicized Wall Street.
Yeah.
It was always considered a supporter of Republicans and conservatives. No longer.
No. In fact, actually, it's gone the other way. I haven't seen the numbers from the last few months, but in the 2020 election, 97% of Wall Street money went to the Democrats.
Wow.
So when you look at the numbers, donation-wise, I'm talking about all donations amongst employees. So, when you're talking about the big banks, Goldman Sachs, Chase, JP Morgan, Citibank, the Merrills, the Morgan Stanleys, the majority of the money was going to them. And the really scary part is the foundations. I mean, you think these foundations that really help form society in a lot of ways and help people.
Far left.
Far left. And they're giving into things that are actually segregating our economy and our people.
They're contrary to, we've done polling, it's contrary to what American people want.
Right.
Well, you've got this promise. We mutually pledge to each other our lives, fortunes, and our sacred honor that is an American-made promise. We'll talk more when we come back.
I look forward to it.
Doug, I love it.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Kevin. It's an honor.
We're talking with Doug Groote, and we've been talking about his American-made promise. It's a pledge that people can take. And I want to ask, what does your pledge mean for an elected official?
It's accountability. At the end of the day, these elected officials are supposed to be held accountable to the electorate. They govern by the electorate, by the citizenry. And this is one way to say, hey, I believe in this. I believe in our Constitution. I believe in these ideas. And I'm going to sign my name on it, just like our founding fathers did when they pledged their life, liberty, and their sacred honor. And they literally gave up everything at our Declaration of Independence. And we're not asking anybody to give up their lives, but the reality is if you believe in it, you should sign it.
Yeah.
And from the opposite side of it, or the people that are electing you, the citizenry,
citizens, yeah. So they pledge too.
They pledge too. So hey, look, you know what? I'm a citizen and I'm signing this contract. So we've got a couple 100,000 people that have signed this thing, but we haven't got the elected officials to do anything. And it's unbelievable. And we haven't marketed it well. We've put it out there. But the reality is people have seen it. They're signing it. They're enthusiastic about it.
It's just going to grow. It's like a very small spark. Mm-hmm. The people are ready for this.
Oh, they are.
And go to, it's American Made Promise.
AmericanMadePromise.com.
Go to that and sign it and get your elected officials to sign it.
Email it to them. I email it to them all the time. Every time I write a letter, an email, I send it and say, hey, American Made Promise. And they're enthusiastic about the idea behind it. There's a fear there, and I think it just takes one. And it's that, and in a way, this is our Declaration of Independence moment, in a modern history, that we're at such a stage where socialism is, we've basically, kind of allowed ourselves to, as a society over the last, 50, well, really since the 1920s, we've compromised our way to socialism. And that's where we're at. And this is our no more moment.
Yeah, but we had so much momentum from entrepreneurship, from ownership society, and from innovation so forth. All right, so let's talk about the markets today.
Yeah.
You're a financial advisor. Mm-hmm. I know you got to speak in general terms. You can't give recommendations.
No recommendations.
But what are your thoughts on the markets?
Look, I'm an optimistic person, so I truly believe that creativity and people will lead our way out. It's not going to be the government that does it. The Federal Reserve is not your friend, although they don't fight the tape, so to speak. But the reality is I look at there's opportunity and disruption. And there's going to be this, I think the next year or so is going to be quite disruptive in a lot of different areas. Energy issues, I mean, they're fighting that, but I think energy prices are going to be a lot higher. That area is going to do very well, oil stocks, things like that. But overall markets, I think we have to go through a learning curve here. There's a period of time where we've never been in a rising interest rate environment, really since the early 80s.
Yeah, not in our investing careers.
Not my career.
And I'm 40 plus years in the investment world.
So when you think about that, it wasn't really till, that ended in 1984, 85, right? Volcker the brakes started to come off. And we're in an environment where our federal government has spent so much money, and they're addicted to it, and we're addicted to the Chinese money and all the other stuff going on, that they're kind of putting a blind eye to some of the issues that are actually core to what's going on in our economy. So I really look at this year as going to be a really tough year from a standpoint of volatility. We haven't seen a lot of volatility in the VIX or anything like that, but you are seeing it in public life. Inflation is here. It's not going away. It's not transient.
Yeah, no, the recent numbers have shown it has not disappeared.
It's actually gotten worse.
Yes.
Yeah, they actually have seen it spike up just the other day, right? And so I think we're going to see rates continue to climb. I think people are going to have a very tough time, especially in the high tax states. So i.e., you might want to build a border on the northwestern part of Texas, a wall there, because it might be easier to build there anyways, because Californians are coming.
Yeah.
It's amazing. California and anybody else out of the north, they're coming to Texas, Florida, the Carolinas, wherever there's low-cost, free states. Money's like water. It's going to go to the area of least resistance.
Well, when I started, just before I graduated from college in 1982, the Dow was 700.
Right.
And then if you just put your money in the market and left it alone, did nothing, for 40 years you did really well. But the environment has shifted. Prior to my joining, I watched my dad as a stockbroker. Individual stock selection was very important.
Yes.
And not because the index went nowhere. From 1966 to 1982, it was flat.
Well, yeah, you look at the 70s during that time period, you had the markets, huge amounts of up and down swings, right? But really, from 68 to 82, it was pretty much the same level. It might have gone from 400 to 700, back down to 400, whatever. Yeah. But individual stocks actually, if you were really good at understanding the environment and where those companies operate in, you did very well.
This is why you need a financial advisor. This is why we're training advisors, to get the bigger picture. But financial advisors become increasingly valuable in volatile markets.
Absolutely.
And people need that.
Yeah, look, you've got to overweight the area. There's always going to be good areas in the economy. And so when you ask, what's good out there, there's going to be good areas out there, and they're going to evolve. And there's going to be sectors of the economy that are going to do very well, and you got to overweight those and underweight the bad. And we're in a situation where right now you're letting, the noise is pervasive, it's all over the place, and very few people are really wanting to identify what's really going on. They just want to step back and wait. And I actually think this is an opportunity going forward to really position yourself and be prepared for those opportunities. And
but you're going to need advice to do it.
You have to, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so let's jump to another topic very quickly. What happens if America fails?
The world's in trouble. I mean, I think we are, there's two nations in the world that I think were granted by God, Israel and the United States. I mean, biblically, you can go back to, beginning of time, Genesis, and all the way through Old Testament, New Testament. And here we are, our founding fathers, they understood who we are and what we are as a nation because of their faith and who they were. And they set it up so that liberty, which is granted by God, not by man's law, it's God's law. And I truly believe that if America fails, there's no other nation that is out there that's going to be free or allowed to happen. Canada's not going to do it. Australia's not going to do it. China's definitely not doing it. South Africa, they've all fallen. Communism is it's very enticing to these people that want to be taken care of. But if you're looking for true liberty, America has got to be defended. And I believe in what Lincoln said. I believe it's not going to be a foreign country that does this. It's going to be what happens, here.
Well, I love it. I love knowing you, Doug. It's been an honor and a privilege. I love the fact that your hope is in God.
Yeah. And
that if America turns to God, we can restore the liberty we had. It's phenomenal.
We have to. We have to be discerning. We have to look at those times of I mean, you look at, Genesis, the first 11 chapters. You have to learn discernment. You have to understand it. And as an advisor to people, you have to understand what's right and wrong.
Well, I love it, Doug. Thanks so much for being in the Economic War Room. Hey, we're going to summarize all this that we've talked about in our free economic battle plan that you can get at EconomicWarRoom.com. And if you want a financial advisor that's gone through the NSIC training course like Doug Groote, you need to learn more. Again, you can find that at EconomicWarRoom.com. Remember, what we see as a marketplace, our enemies view as a battle space. This is Kevin Freeman from the Economic War Room.